What is going on, guys? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to MX Bikes, where today we're going to be playing 2022 Glen Helen by Superjoint. You guys can check out this track on the MXB mods page. But basically what I'm going to try to do today is we did a little bit of an update about Beta 18 and MX Bikes on Monday of this week, where I called it the third-person update. So I'm still trying to get a little bit more used to third-person in this game again. I learned the game in third-person a long time ago, just because I've always been a third-person guy in MX Simulator, and coming from the arcade games, I was always a third-person player. I never liked playing first-person on, Reflex or any of those types of games. So I was always third-person. Then I eventually learned how to play first person on bikes because I hated the third person camera in this game. So when this new update came out, I've been a little bit more inclined to try to learn the game again in third person, and so just felt like I should kind of make a video talking about that progress so far, what I'm feeling, what I'm liking about the updated camera, and some other things. And no better way or place to do that than at a Glen Helen track. Now, for those of you that don't know, Glen Helen is pretty much my home track. I live only like about an hour from Glen Helen in real life. It's definitely the track I've raced more than anything in my entire life. I don't know, I've probably raced there maybe at least 50 times in my life at this point. Definitely just a track that I feel like the back of my hand. So when I see another rendition of it come out like this, I always want to get down and play it and see like how close did they get, how realistic does it feel and everything like that. So I apologize in advance, Superjoint, because I'll pick it apart. I'll pick this track apart more than pretty much any other track that I would, but it's just because I know this track so dang well. Like I said, I just know it like the back of my hand. So we're going to talk about the nuances, the things I like about this track, some of the things I think he did right, and talk about the progression with third person in MX Bike so far. So let's talk about the track first of all. Glen Helen, it's a legendary Southern California track. If you've never seen it before, if you've never been before, it's one of those tracks that I kind of feel like has to be almost like a little bit of a bucket list track. Like, I want to ride Redbud and Millville and, Lommel and all these tracks one day in my life. I haven't had the chance to ride much of anything outside of California in my life because I've been born and raised here and raced here my entire life. But one day, maybe that's the plan. But if you are someone that likes to travel the country and try out different tracks and see the lands of motocross a little bit, I would say Glen Helen is the place to go to in Southern California still. To me, it's the premier Southern California facility. I know Fox Raceway hosts the National, but there's politics involved that we won't get into that keep the National from coming to Glen Helen, and it's why it goes to Fox Raceway. Fox Raceway is a fine track. I don't think it's a national caliber track, but I think it's an okay family facility and a good little track to practice on and stuff like that. No problems with it as that. I just don't think it's a national track, and I think Glen Helen should be on the schedule, in my opinion. But again, I just think that Glen Helen is one of those iconic tracks that just kind of fits the bill of any American motocross enthusiast. You know about the history. If you've grown up watching motocross and supercross, Glen Helen has been around the sport for a long time. It used to be called something completely different, and then eventually changed hands and was renamed to Glen Helen in, I believe, the 80s, and has stuck ever since. And it's just hosts a lot of really interesting moments and races and stuff like that. And it just is a massive facility, huge hills, big jumps, always one of the gnarliest tracks when it used to be on the schedule, and still one of the gnarliest tracks in real life when guys go ride it or race it. Like I said, it's just kind of a staple facility. Now, in terms of this track built by Superjoint here, I'm just going to be straight up. I don't think that this is all that good of a rendition of Glen Helen. Yes, it has the hills. It has, for the most part, the 2022 updated version of this track. The last time I was here was at Glen Helen, I think was in May or June to do some filming. So it's been a couple months now since I've really been out there to see, how the landscape has changed. But this is a pretty familiar rendition of this track, where it goes through this little kind of wash area in this back corner. The 3 tables by the finish line jump is kind of just the thing now. Like, coming out of this corner, you got one table here, got another table here. In fact, the last time I really rode Glen Helen hard, I crashed really heavily on those tabletops. So very familiar with those tabletops right there. And then this little area between the palm trees, it used to just kind of double back right here. But now what they've done, which is one of my least favorite things, is they've taken Mount St. Helens, and instead of going all the way up to the top through this little middle chute right here, they shortcut it and go back down what I call the short chute hill. Some people call it the Shoei Hill. There's a couple other names for it, but I don't like this actual rendition of the track. I wish they'd go down underneath this bridge, turn around, and then go all the way straight back up Mount St. Helens, because I love the feeling of going straight up the hill like this, all the way to the top next to the flagpole and everything like that. When it goes up the back way like it does like this, it just doesn't feel like Glen Helen to me personally, but some people might have a differing opinion, and that's totally fine. But yeah, it's not a bad rendition, I should say, of the actual layout of the track or the hills or anything like that. It's far too tight and kind of small, condensed, whatever you want to call it, to be correct in my opinion. These straightaways right here, for example, are much more wide open in third gear through a sand section than it is just like tiptoeing into the next corner. This straightaway all the way up to Talladega, you could get even in a fifth gear on a 250F quite easily. It's just so much more of a fast track, and I'm riding a 250F. I've tried to ride this track in game on a 450, and it was too tight. It really was, which in real life is not the case. You almost need a 450 to get up some of these hills sometimes, and on top of that, the corners at the bottom of the hills and everything like that are not very tight at all when you're actually riding a 450. They're very wide open, a lot of flow and everything like that to them, which I just don't feel like this track really has. And like I said, he does a good job with so much stuff that I hate, like knocking on it. I'm just trying to kind of almost say, in terms of a realistic Glen Helen, I think this one misses the mark a little bit. So just my opinion. I think other people may have a differing opinion, but just saying what I'm saying. Either way, still really cool for me to actually get down and ride this track and feel Glen Helen again and feel it beneath my toes and everything like that. I've been itching to ride a little bit more lately. It's been so long since I've really been riding consistently with work being as hectic as it has been. So I've been wanting to get out to Glen Helen. Almost had a chance to go race here a few weeks back, but I was unable to do so. So hopefully to get out here soon and ride again is something that I'll be doing soon. But right now, just not getting after it too much and enjoying at least playing it virtually for the time being. So I'm going to finish up a lap here on the main track, because he did actually include 2 tracks here, which is always really cool. It used to be called the REM track forever that we're about to go to, but the Saturday motocross let REM go, I guess is what it was called. I don't know. It's a weird situation. Anyway, enough of all that. Let's go ahead and go right next to the starting line here and over to what is now called the vet track. Like I said, it used to be called the REM track. It used to be called, you name it, whatever, but now it's called the vet track. And it's just going to flow right into this corner. Now, it is very much, like I said, a vet track. It's not got big jumps. It's very hilly, but it's way more my style of racetrack anyway. I've never been super fond of jumpy turn, tight turn, nothing but jump kind of racetracks. Like, I'm a very natural terrain motocross guy. So Glen Helen has always piqued my fancy anyway, because it's got so much elevation and natural terrain. And then on top of that, for a lot of the years, they've made both the main track and the REM track almost nothing but utilizing the hills and no jumps, which is really what I'm after. I think some jumps are fine. It's okay to have it in there for the newer crowds that are super into the jumping. And yes, I know that I'm young and sound like a really old dude right now. I'm not that old, but I've just never been super fond of the challenge of jumping, because I don't really feel like there's much, aside from scrubbing, there's not much to gain in jumping. There's a lot more to gain from attacking a downhill well and, late braking, getting to an inside rut and stuff like that. And that's a good challenge to me that I enjoy having, that really jumping just never really brought to me. I'll do jumps, but it's just not the same challenge or fun factor that I have from attacking a corner down a hill or something like that. So I very much like the REM track these days at Glen Helen, because, well, the vet track, I guess, is what it's called now, because it does have that feeling of, there's not too many jumps, and it's really about, attacking your corners, hitting your marks and stuff like that, which, Superjoint with this track has done a pretty good job of. Now, again, I do think that I hate to say like the word underscale, because it's such a big track anyway, the way that he built it, but it does feel that both the REM track and the main track might be a little bit underscaled to some degree. They're just a little bit tight, a little bit, hard to get really opened up on. The last time I rode this vet track here, I rode a Yamaha 450, and yeah, it's quite easy to not get anywhere close to below second gear through these corners. Easily getting up into fourth and sometimes fifth gear, depending on where you are on the racetrack here. Which, I'm riding a 250F, like I said, and it feels really like I'm, shifting. I'm quick shifting. I'm in low gear range for the most part. And then before you know it, I'm coming up to another tight corner, which I just don't feel like the vet track here feels like that. Now, so I guess some people that maybe ride this track faster than me might have a different viewpoint, just because you do stay in that high rev range a lot more often, which means you're not shifting as much. But I still feel like you can get to those higher gears on any track at Glen Helen quite easily, because it is so spread out and so big. And like I said, if you don't believe me, I would go to Glen Helen yourself and see it, because it is quite a spectacular facility if you've never actually been there. You roll in and you see the hills and you see how small the bikes are, or the riders are going up the hills, and you're like, oh yeah, this is actually maybe a little bit bigger than I was thinking it was going to be. But it's always fun to roll in and see basically like ants going up and down Mount St. Helens and stuff like that, because whew, man, this track is big. Oh my gosh, how did I land that? Don't know, but casually turned into a little transfer, popping over. But anyway, yeah, Glen Helen 2022 by Superjoint. Just like I said, fun to ride it, fun to feel Glen Helen again, and kind of fun to relearn some of these tracks that, I played Glen Helen 2015 or whatever it is, I think by TFC, so many times in this game. And back when I was learning the game and playing third person, that was a track that I played a lot of. So now to kind of circle back and play a more modern version of Glen Helen and get back into the third person grind a little bit. Now, I don't think that I'm going to stick with third person as a full-time thing. I think I might bounce between first and third quite a bit to just determine what I'm more comfortable with. I mean, I love playing third person for the ability to see what the rider's doing and how the bike is reacting. And of course, when you throw a whip, it looks unbelievably cool in third person, where in first person, it just feels a little dizzying. But I don't know what I'm going to stick with yet. I just, both of them have their flaws, in my opinion. Both of them have their pluses. And I used to think that you had to play first person to go fast in this game. And then I had this lovely gentleman on my team by the name of F-Moof that is a god at this game, and he plays in third person. So maybe I don't need first person to go fast. I just need to get better at the game, actually. So anyway, that's a little update about the game, some third person action, some Glen Helen gameplay, and a little bit of fun for you guys on this lovely Thursday, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a lovely one. And if you have any more comments, questions, or concerns, hit me up in the comment section below. But thanks for stopping by and watching another video here on Start Your Systems. I'm Kellen, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.